everyone. Today I'll be sharing 11 different verses with you and talking a little about them. And I know I've missed several days of doing this, in fact, almost 2 weeks, but now I'm back to doing it daily. So tomorrow I'm back to the regular schedule where I pick one verse at random, but today I'll be talking about 11 different verses that God showed me to share with you. The first one of them is Genesis 5:22. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Now, what I want to focus on in this verse is that Enoch is said to have walked faithfully with God for 300 years. And, well, walking faithfully with God is not always easy, but clearly it is possible. And the example of Enoch shows that even before Jesus came to earth, in fact, long before he did, it was possible. Now, I want to remind you, in order to walk faithfully with God, we cannot rely on ourselves, but rather we need to rely on God, because alone we cannot do it. We just can't. But God is with us, just like he was with Enoch. The next verse I'm going to share is Colossians 2:20. Since you died with Christ to the elemental spiritual forces of this world, why, do you still belong to the world? Do you submit to its rules? This is one of the letters Paul wrote, clearly to the Colossians, because otherwise it would be called that. And the emphasis here is not just on any random rules, but rather practiced religion. Being a Christian isn't about being religious or belonging to a certain religion. It's about a relationship with Jesus. And think about it. What is one group mentioned in all the Gospels and later on that was very religious? Well, that group was the Pharisees. And, well, you can see why being religious and having a relationship with Jesus can be completely opposite things, especially in this case. Being a Christian isn't about following a bunch of rules, doing certain rituals and all that. Now, sure, some things Christians do can seem like that, but that's not the main focus. It definitely shouldn't be. The main focus is to have a relationship with Jesus. And yes, for everyone that can seem different, and for some it may be helpful to incorporate certain rituals, but the focus shouldn't be the rituals. The focus needs to be Jesus. And I just want to remind you of that. It is easy to lose focus, but then we need to regain it. So focus on Jesus, not on religion. The next verse I'm going to share with you is 2 Samuel 23:4. He is like the light of morning at sunrise on a cloudless morning, like the brightness after rain that brings grass from the earth. Now, that specific verse is about David. Yes, King David. But it also points to how a ruler who follows God should be and is for the world around him. And, well, it most certainly points to Jesus. And, well, what thoughts do you associate with this verse? It sounds amazing, doesn't it? And that's what it is. Perfect ruler. And we have one. It's an amazing thought, isn't it? The next verse I will share with you is Deuteronomy 28:16. You will be cursed in the city and cursed in the country. That is about people who disobey God. And yes, I know, we all sin, we all fall short. And if it wasn't for Jesus, we all would be under this curse. So it's all the more amazing that Jesus freed us from it. Don't you think? We would lead a cursed existence if it wasn't for Jesus. But he sets us free. And I'm very thankful for that. What about you? The next verse I will share with you is Colossians 4:9. He's coming with Onesimus, our faithful and dear brother, who is one of you. They will tell you everything that is happening here. Now, Paul wrote this letter during a time when he was already in prison. And he's also talking about other believers coming to the Colossians. And that's what it is about. Being together, coming together and sharing what we know, especially about those we care about. The next verse I will share is 1 Chronicles 25:3. As for Jeduthun from his sons, Gedaliah, Zerai, Jeshaiah, Shimei, Hashabiah, and Mattithiah, 6 in all, under the supervision of the father Jeduthun, who prophesied, using the harp in thanking and praising the Lord. That verse just shows families coming together, praising God, and that's such an important aspect. And when we praise God, we we really get to know him better, and in our praise, God can reveal things about himself, about the future, about anything really. Now, that shouldn't be our focus when we praise God, but rather praising God should come out of wanting to praise God, not wanting something in return. And it was just such a beautiful reminder to praise God together. The next verse I will share with you is Jonah 1:5. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. And they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. Now, I'm sure many of you know the story of Jonah. God told Jonah to go to Nineveh, but Jonah didn't want to, so he went on a ship to sail in the opposite direction. But God sends a storm, because he wants Jonah to go to Nineveh, so he doesn't allow him to just go the opposite way. And, well, during that storm, obviously the sailors were afraid, because being in a ship on the sea during a storm, it is scary. What if the ship sinks? And, well, in that case, there was no land nearby, so they likely would have drowned. And, well, who wants to drown? I don't think anyone. And, of course, them crying out to their gods, their false gods, did nothing. How could it? Their gods weren't real. Jonah, however, well, it's likely that he knows what is going on, but he wants to distance himself from that, so he goes below deck. He knows the reason for the problem, and, well, he will later reveal it. But that story also shows withdrawing from God doesn't work. He seeks us out. The next verse I will share with you is Nahum 1:13. Now I will break their yoke from your neck and tear your shackles away. That verse just shows what God does for us. He set us free from sin, from this world, and He continues to set us free and set those around us free. Isn't that just amazing? The next verse I'm sharing with you is 2 Thessalonians 1:3. We ought always to thank God for you, brothers and sisters, and rightly so, because your faith is growing more and more, and the love all of you have for one another is increasing. That is truly a great thing to be thankful for, and I couldn't have said it better. Thanking God in every situation is so important, and I'm glad I can do that. The next verse I will share with you is Amos 3:9. Proclaim to the fortresses of Ashdod and to the fortresses of Egypt, assemble yourselves on the mountains of Samaria. See the great unrest within her, and the oppression among her people. That verse, well, it shows that God's judgment will always come for any nation, for, well, anyone. But God also warns of this. And that shows who God is. I mean, he could have just wiped out all of Earth after it was clear that so many of us would never stop sinning, but he didn't. And even before the flood, there were warning signs. People just refused to listen to them. God always warns people about his judgment. And I'm grateful he does that, but also that he saves us. And the last verse I'm going to share today is John 3:19. This is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but people love darkness instead of light, because their deeds were evil. That was the reality then, and still is now. But we, as Christians, follow the light, follow Jesus, who is the light of this world. But anyone who belongs to the world rather than to God will keep following the world and will go against God and God's chosen people. So we really need to rely on God, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to withstand that. But in the end, we have eternity set before us. Just focus on that. Focus on Jesus, and he will help you overcome anything you're facing. God bless you all.